Welcome everyone. This video I'm going to show you how I made a vintage cash register. I have my countertop here to help me get the scale correctly. I'm going to make one out of foam board and the other one out of cereal box or food packaging. I also plan to try to make one that has a drawer that opens and closes. Once that I was happy with my pattern, I drew it out on foam board. I traced out and cut 5 layers, and I tried to go really slow, especially on the curve. I didn't glue the layers together yet. I just set them on my counter to see if I liked the width. I ended up just using 4 layers because my counter's starting to get a little cluttered. For my second register, I traced out the pattern onto cereal box. To keep the pieces more uniform and to have less sanding, I cut it out, glued it onto the cereal box 4 times. I made 5 pieces that way with 4 layers of cereal box in each one. This is how one of the sections with the 4 layers looks. I used one of the pieces to help me decide how wide and deep to make the base. Once I decided that size, I cut it out and glued it to the cereal box just like I did the sections, but I think I did 2 or 3 layers instead of 4. Then I glued the 2 end pieces onto that base first, and then I evenly spaced out the other pieces in the inside. Making it this way could be helpful if you don't have foam board, or if you have a cutting machine and would prefer to cut it out that way. Now I'm gluing it down onto the cereal box to create the back or the bottom, whichever way you look at it. And now I'm cutting it away from the cereal box, but I'm not trimming up close until the glue is dry. While it's drying, I glued the 4 pieces of foam board together. It'll look something like this. Now that the glue's dry, I'm going to trim away the extra cereal box from the other register. I also glued it down to the cereal box again for the other bottom or back piece. And this is how this piece should look now at this point. I traced my pattern piece 2 more times onto cereal box, and that will be the ends for the foam board register. And then I went ahead and glued them on to the ends. And now, just like on the other register, I'm gluing the bottom down to the cereal box. And I'll let it dry and I'll trim it. And now I'm going to glue it down to the cereal box 1 more time to create the bottom or the back. And now this is how this register is looking so far. Now I'm using cardstock, and I'm going to make a strip of cardstock that will cover the front of the registers. Make sure it's cardstock because the cereal board will be too thick. I'm almost out of frame here, but what I did was lightly spray the cardstock so that it would be soft enough to bend easily around the register forms. I went slow. I only started with gluing the top of the register first before I tackled the curve. And my ruler really helped to get a sharp edge, a sharp corner. And then I applied glue to the curved section only, and then I glued that over the curve. You can use your ruler again to get the sharp corner. And then I went ahead and finished gluing it to the top. And now the foam board is completely covered and it should look something like this. On the second register, I did the very same thing. I dampened my cardstock and then I only glued it to the top section, not the curve section. And now I'm gluing the curve section, but be careful not to push your finger through where there isn't any cardstock behind it or cereal box behind it. That way you won't have any dips. And I noticed that my ruler helped to just keep it smooth. And once all of that is glued down, I just lightly sand it to soften the edges. I folded the graph paper in half and I created a little decorative design that will be the top trim of the register. And this is how that pattern piece looks. And just like before, I traced my pattern piece onto cereal box and then I cut it out and I glued it, and I believe I did 4 layers. This little piece is totally optional, but I used my pattern piece to create this little decorative trim. I cut it out 2 times and glued it to the front and the back of my decorative piece. I also cut out a little strip of cereal box that's almost like a little shelf that I'm going to glue onto the top that the decorative piece will glue onto. I think that I made mine 2 or 3 layers thick. And I sanded the edges to round them off so they wouldn't be sharp. And then I glued my decorative piece onto that little shelf piece. This is how that little piece looks. This is how it will look sitting on the register, but I don't glue it on at this point. This part is totally optional, but I trace the profile of my register and then I trace that onto the cereal box, and then I draw a fan shape like this on that piece. It's about 1/16 of an inch away from all of the edges, like this. And then I cut it out and I save that piece. And I penciled in, coming in some from each edge, and I'm going to trim that away to the pencil line. And then I glue that down to cereal box. Then I glue that little fan shape into that piece in the opening, but I make sure to leave a little gap, a little track. This makes a little tool so that I can emboss the sides with that fan shape. I take my pattern and I line it up with my tool and then I emboss it. And if you're doing it for the other side, you have to turn your tool up on end. Then I take 1 layer of a paper doily and I decide what parts of the doily that I want to cut out or glue on to my side pieces. And that could be any way that you choose. It's totally optional, and you can use as much or as little of the doily that you want. I was trying to go for a carved wood look or embossed metal. This first base for a cash register does not have a functioning drawer. I cut it to be a little wider than the register itself, and I also trimmed out the foam board with cardstock to cover the raw edges. I did put some of the paper doily here to look like the front of the drawer had carvings on it. And here I'm just gluing all of the pieces together. And then I glued on my register. You can see here where I glued a lot of the paper doilies. I also glued some string that had glue on it to stiffen it around the base of the register to hide the gap. I also used some hole punches and also some diamond glaze in different spots just to give it some texture. I cut some strips of cardstock and I rounded the ends, and then I curved them and I glued them on to be part of the keypads, the number keypads. Some pictures of vintage cash registers had this heart shape that was either on one side or both sides, and I'm choosing to do it one side. So I cut it out of foam board and I trimmed it with cardstock, and I glued some more of the paper doily on it, and then I glued it to the side of my register. This is how the register base looked that I made that had the functioning drawer. And I kept one end open for the drawer, of course, to move in and out. The drawer was cut a little bit smaller than the base so that it would move freely in and out. And now I'm gluing the register onto that base. I wanted my registers to look like wood, so I'm just painting on a light brown, a light coat, and giving it kind of a medium brown and water wash. One of the registers I chose to paint the keypad, the key area, the strips white like I have seen in vintage pictures. This register I didn't want to be as dark as the other one, so I was trying to keep it lighter. I gave it a black paint and water wash to hopefully bring out some of the detail of the doilies and the embossing. This was my first time using the paper doilies, and I like it because it didn't add a lot of bulk to it too. I added some chalk pastels, but I was trying to keep it light and not get too dark. My first job had a vintage register just like this that I learned to count change back with. I'm painting on some black dots to look like the keys, the number keys. This one I chose to do white circles for the keys. And then I put a little dot of diamond glaze on each one of the keys to make them shiny. This is how the keys turned out. I traced out a little hand crank shape and I cut it out and glued a few layers together, and then I rolled a little bit of paper and glued a bead on to be the handle. And then I just glued them on instead of making them functioning. I think I was just being lazy and figured I would probably never turn the handle anyway. I designed these really basic looking, I don't know what you would call this, the numbers for the register on my computer. You could probably use Canva. And then I put a little bit of diamond glaze over each one to make them look like a shiny window. I also used my computer to create this very, very basic money just to give you an idea of money, and I wrinkled it before I cut it so that it would look more realistic. I also dirtied it up with a little bit of chalk pastels. I'm not really sure which register I want to use in the general store now. I was hoping to use this one, but I can't make up my mind. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.